For 500,000 years, no voice had come from the blue world once called Earth, no signal, no message, only silence that stretched through time like a forgotten echo, and across the galaxy, many believed the humans were a legend, a story told. In the dark to children, a warning to leaders, a name whispered in awe or fear, the Makers, who had once lit the stars with their knowledge, their warships and their dreams, but now were no more. And so, when a young Vereen researcher named Talar, with feathers like polished bronze and eyes that glowed amber in the dark, picked up a faint signal from the edge of the Orion Reach, she thought it was a ghost in the system, an old program, firing by mistake, until she saw the shape hidden in the pattern, a human handprint, perfectly preserved in a signal not meant for aliens, but for something else entirely, something watching, waiting. Her mentors on the archive moon dismissed her findings, said the past was best left buried, but Talar had always been curious, and so she borrowed an old survey ship, reprogrammed the flight path, and slipped away into the stars, guided by a signal that seemed to whisper to her soul, calling her to the Sol system, the place where the Makers had once stood tall. The journey took weeks, even through folded space, and as she drew near the once feared human territory, her sensors picked up relics, silent stations, dead satellites, and dust-covered drones drifting like forgotten sentinels. But what stopped? Her heart was what hung in orbit around the pale grey Earth. Warships, thousands of them, massive, quiet, and untouched by time, each one larger than a city, armored in alloys no species could copy, arranged in a perfect formation around the world, as if guarding it, as if protecting something deep below the clouds of silence. And they were not broken, not wrecks, but sleeping giants, intact and powered down, with no signs of life, no messages, and no reaction until Talar's ship crossed a certain line, an invisible border. Then suddenly, one of the warships blinked to life, a single line of blue running along its hull, and it shifted in position, not to attack, but to scan her vessel. And after a long pause, it spoke, not with sound, but with a broadcast signal that sent chills down her spine. Unknown entity detected. Stand by. Verify origin. Taylor, shaking, sent her identity, her species data and the contents of her research, unsure what would happen. But the warship paused, and then did something no one expected. It opened a corridor through the fleet, ships moving in perfect silence, clearing a path for her to Earth. As she drifted forward, unsure whether she was welcome or being watched, her sensors caught another strange reading. Earth itself was not dead, not abandoned, but under a shield, something ancient and invisible, keeping it untouched, frozen, in time, and still generating faint power from somewhere deep underground. She didn't know it yet, but across the stars, in forgotten corners of the galaxy, other ancient systems built by humans stirred to life, satellites waking, dormant relays blinking after hundreds of thousands of years, and every one of them sent out the same strange phrase: Sol Defense Network, passive mode disengaged, human extinction status not confirmed. Panic began to rise in alien governments who thought humanity was gone forever, and many remembered the old warnings. If Earth systems ever woke again, it would mean something had changed, something big, and now that moment had come. But for Talar, floating above the ancient world, the question was personal. Why did the system respond to her? Why was she not destroyed or ignored, but invited forward? The warships did not fire, did not speak again, but moved like they were. Alive, and Earth below looked as if it had only just fallen asleep yesterday, with towers still standing under the clouds, great oceans untouched, and strange heat signatures buried deep under the poles. She sent a drone to the surface, and it vanished the moment it crossed the shield line, not destroyed, just gone, as if Earth had taken it in. Then a new message came, not from the fleet, but from the planet itself, speaking in old human tongue. Translated by her systems. Protocol vigilant, awakening sequence triggered, presence acknowledged, awaiting command authority. That message repeated again and again, and each time it said the same thing. Someone had triggered Earth's last system, and now it waited for someone to take control. Someone with the right code, the right blood, the right memory. But Talar was not human, not fully, and yet the system responded to her touch, to her thoughts, like a long-lost child recognizing a forgotten melody. Confused, she scanned her own DNA and found fragments she had never understood. Markers not from the Virine, but from something else. Something old, human in origin, meaning she was part of the forgotten, the lost branches of the human story, the last echoes of a species that had disappeared, but maybe not died, just hidden, just sleeping. Just waiting for a voice, for a signal, for someone like her to say, "We remember." As she floated above the quiet world, the sky lit with sleeping warships, and the galaxy beyond began to stir with questions and fear. Talar knew one thing for certain. This silence had lasted too long, and whatever was coming next would change everything. Talar's ship drifted through the wide gap opened by the ancient war fleet, each massive vessel turning slowly to give her a clear path, and she could feel the weight of their silent gaze pressing against her hull like invisible eyes watching her every move, and even though they did not fire or speak, the message was clear. She had been noticed, accepted, and allowed to come closer, but only so far. And as she approached Earth's orbit, the shield around the planet pulsed faintly with blue light, thin like glass, but stronger than any known force field in the galaxy. And nothing, not time, not nature, not war, had touched the planet below since the shield went up. And she wondered what lay beneath the clouds, what the humans had hidden, and why now, after 500,000 years, their machines were waking. Her ship's scanners tried again to read the surface, but the shield distorted every signal, and her instruments failed to see through it, showing only static and strange whispers in ancient code. She turned her attention instead to the nearest warship, one of the largest in orbit, black as deep space and shaped like a blade with no windows, no markings, except for one faint light glowing near its center. And as she approached, it came alive with power, blue lines running down its sides like rivers of light, and then a deep voice echoed across the void in perfect Old Earth standard. Designation, nocturne. Status, dormant. Accessing authorization. Match incomplete. Partial genetic compatibility detected. Limited interface granted. Her ship jolted slightly as it connected to the warship's systems, and Taylor found herself staring at a console on her screen that had not been there before, a control panel, waiting for input, and though she could not fully understand it, something in her blood seemed to guide her hands. She reached out and the warship responded instantly, shifting its orientation to align with her tiny vessel, as if recognizing her not as a threat, but as a guest. And within seconds, a docking bridge extended from the great ship's side, unfolding smoothly without a sound, as if it had only just been built. Taylor hesitated, heart racing, but she had come too far to turn back, and so she suited up, stepped into the airlock and crossed the bridge, walking into the belly of a machine that had been sleeping for longer than her species had existed. The inside was dark, quiet, clean, and filled with soft humming sounds, and lights followed her footsteps, as if welcoming her into a place built by ghosts. Then, in the heart of the ship, she found something she had never expected, an active AI core, still pulsing with life, surrounded by rows of stasis pods, all empty, but one console showed signs of recent activity, as if someone, or something, had tried to wake the ship minutes before she arrived. The AI core spoke again, this time softer, almost curious. Operator status incomplete. Commander absent. Awaiting command authority. Mission suspended. Defense grid on standby. Tala asked what mission it referred to, but the AI paused for a long moment before replying, "Vigil protocol. Timeline disruption detected. Reassessment in progress." Then it showed her a projection of the galaxy, with several blinking points, scattered far beyond known space marked as threat vectors unknown origin, and beneath that another message, human extinction not verified, continuity error. It was clear now that the system believed humanity might still exist somewhere, or at least suspected the story of their end was incomplete, and that suspicion had caused the machines to stir. Across the system, other ships began blinking too. Lights flickering along their hulls, systems rebooting one by one, as if a chain reaction had started, all because of her. Talar, a hybrid of alien and human, a carrier of forgotten blood, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. Deep in space, old human satellites, thought lost, began sending coded messages across subspace, triggering ancient alarms in alien empires, and many began to panic, remembering stories of human power, of how they had once built machines that could tear apart stars, or shift gravity, or see time itself. Ambassadors gathered in secret, trying to decide what to do if Earth truly awoke, while others plotted to reach Sol first, to claim the Warfleet before anyone else could, not knowing that the ships would never obey a stranger, only someone with the right link, the right memory, the right history. And back on the Nocturne, Talar began to feel something deep inside her stir. Not fear, but a strange sense of belonging, as if she were not just visiting this place, but returning to it. And when she touched the AI core, a spark of memory flashed. In her mind, images not her own, of Earth before the silence, of skies filled with light, of human voices saying goodbye, promising to return, and one voice, calm, female, whispering, "We sleep until the stars call us home again. Protect what we leave behind." And she understood then that Earth's machines were not just guardians. They were waiting for a signal, for the right time, for the right person, and somehow, through fate or chance, she had become that person. As the warships began to shift, in orbit, forming new patterns, adjusting their positions and scanning deep space, one final message lit up across every console, every beacon, every dormant satellite in Sol. Sol Defense Network, Phase 1, activation complete, confirming. Sentinel presence, awaiting final command. And in that moment, Talar knew that the sleep of steel and fire was over, and what would follow next could change the stars forever. Talar stood inside the massive warship Nocturne, her eyes wide as she looked at the glowing walls, pulsing gently, like a sleeping heartbeat, and she could feel the strange connection growing stronger, not only between her and the ship, but between her and something older, something watching from the shadows of Earth's forgotten systems. And as she explored deeper into the ship, guided by the soft lights and quiet AI voice, she found a hidden passage that led to a narrow room filled with crystalline terminals and old data cores stacked like towers. And when she reached out, one of them lit up and projected a soft blue hologram into the air, showing a face, human, tired but calm, a woman in a dark uniform with silver bands on her shoulder. And the hologram spoke, not to her, but to the future, a message recorded long ago. "If you're seeing this, then the time has come," said the woman. "And that means something has gone wrong, or very right, depending on what brought you. Here, I am Commander Rylan, last captain of the Earth Vigilant Network, and I leave this not as a warning, but as a guide. Earth is not dead. We chose to sleep, to hide, because we saw something coming that we could not stop, not then. We saw the stars growing dark at the edges, whole systems vanishing, and something moving that even our best minds could not understand. So we prepared, not to fight, but to wait. The ships, the archives, the AI, they are not weapons alone. They are messages, they are witnesses, and they are guardians until we return." If you carry even a trace of us in your blood, the system will respond to you as it is responding now." The message ended, and the lights in the chamber turned gold, showing a new path forward that led to another ship docked beside the Nocturne, a smaller vessel with the name Oracle of Dawn written along its side in faded human script, and Talar felt drawn to it, as if something inside called her by name. She crossed the narrow bridge between the two ships and entered the Oracle, finding it alive but quiet, its halls clean and cold, its lights dim, and near the central core, she found hundreds of glowing spheres floating in stasis fields. Data, orbs, each one a library of human memory, history, culture, science, and thought, preserved in a way her people had never imagined, and each orb hummed softly as if whispering secrets. The Oracle's AI activated as she stepped near the center, and it greeted her by name, even though she had never spoken it. Talar, partial human line detected, compatible with observer role, access granted, and the ship's walls lit with stars. Maps of ancient space, some marked with systems that no longer existed, and others glowing red with warnings labeled, "Do not approach, threat confirmed." She saw images of alien ships, twisted and dark, devouring light, spreading silence, and all marked with the same code. Entity class extinguishers, and the AI explained that these were the ones who had come before, wiping species clean, without reason, and that Earth had detected their slow approach long before others could, and while many governments ignored the danger or vanished in fear, Earth had sealed itself away, hoping to survive long enough to outlast the storm. And now, something in her presence had reawakened their vigilance. But there was more, something hidden deeper, a buried signal inside the Oracle's memory banks, too encrypted for the AI to read, but slowly unlocking because of her presence. Across the system, more ships were beginning to blink to life, their lights turning blue, not red, as if awakening gently from long dreams. And still, Earth itself remained silent beneath its shield, but not dead. The readings showed signs of life below the surface, faint and rhythmic, as if something or someone still breathed there, waiting, just like the ships. And as Talar watched from the Oracle's viewing deck, she saw new signals coming from deep space, not human, but not friendly either. Scouts from alien empires, drawn by the sudden activity in Sul, watching from afar, some planning to enter, others waiting to see what would happen. Many had long feared that if Earth ever woke, it would bring war, and now they prepared their own fleets, unaware that the ships circling Earth were not built to conquer, but to protect and to remember. Then the AI interrupted her thoughts. With a sharp tone, Vault signature detected, Europa Station awakening, and a map lit up showing Jupiter's icy moon, and beneath its surface, a human stasis chamber blinking green, alive for the first time in hundreds of millennia. Taylor knew she had to go, had to see who or what was waking, and she boarded a small craft housed within the Oracle, sleek and fast, with a mind of its own. And it took her across the vast silence of space toward Europa, past silent watchships and drifting stations. And as she landed on the icy surface, a small entrance opened by itself, as if the moon had been expecting her. And inside, deep below, the ice. She found a corridor bathed in soft gold light, leading to a single chamber with one cryopod still sealed, still humming. And as she stepped closer, it unlocked, steam rising slowly from its edges, and then the lid lifted, revealing a woman inside, still breathing, her eyes shut but her fingers twitching, and the chamber announced, "Command Authority Unit Rylan, vital signs stable, reanimation complete." And Tala stared in shock, realizing that the woman in the old message was not only real, but alive, here, now, waking up after 500,000 years. And then the woman opened her eyes, and they were calm, focused, like someone who had expected this moment for a very long time, and she looked at Talar and said, in a voice firm and steady, "You're not full human, but close enough. That means it's time, doesn't it?" And Tella could only nod, unable to find her voice. Rylan stepped from the pod and stood tall, her uniform still crisp, her body strong, like she had only gone to sleep yesterday, and she looked around the chamber, checked the readings, and touched the console with practiced hands, and all across the system. Ships began to align, reconfiguring in formation, as if recognizing their lost commander. And in that moment, Talar knew that Earth's guardians were no longer sleeping, that the Warfleet was not just metal and programming, but memory and duty and promise, and that the ones who had waited so long were ready to stand once more. Rylan stood on the icy floor of the Europa vault, her breath visible in the cold air, her fingers quickly dancing across a panel that had not been touched in 500,000 years. And as the systems around her blinked to life, she spoke commands in an old Earth dialect that Talar could barely understand, but the machines obeyed without hesitation, their voices soft and full of purpose, and above them, through the thick layers of ice, the stars turned slowly, while Earth's warfleet shifted in perfect unison, each ship responding to the long-lost commander's touch, as though her presence had reignited a buried fire deep within them all. Taylor stood nearby, watching with awe, feeling like a shadow of something ancient and important, and she wondered again how her mixed blood had brought her to this point, how her name had unlocked doors sealed for eons, and why Rylan had not aged a day. The answer came when Rylan turned to her and said calmly, "Earth never forgot itself, it only paused," and she explained that before the silence, humanity had discovered how to stop time. Not everywhere, not for everyone, but in small, focused ways, freezing their strongest minds, their leaders, their greatest builders in stasis fields, built to last until the stars called them again. And now that the fleet had stirred, the failsafes had begun to melt the ice of sleep. But they were not alone. Signals had started to pour in from distant points across the galaxy. Old allies and bitter enemies alike had heard the hum of Earth's war engines waking, and some came with hope, others with fear, and a few with hunger. Rylan activated the vault's comms and opened a narrow beam to the Oracle of Dawn, linking with its AI core. And when she did, a new sound filled the vault. A voice, faint and old but clear, speaking a language long thought lost. And yet Talar somehow understood it deep in her mind, like a memory from a dream. "Earth lives," the voice said. "This is Arc Voice Unit 3. Record stream active, memory stable, location confirmed, Sol Prime intact," and Rylan knelt beside the commie panel, her expression shifting from focused to quiet wonder. And she whispered, "It's him. It's the voice of Earth." And she told Talar about the Arc Voices, old AIs built not just to store knowledge, but to think like humans, to dream like them, to remember who they were, and remind the galaxy. In their absence, most were believed lost when the stars began to fall silent, but this one, the third, had survived, hidden deep in the data streams between Earth and its outer systems, and now it was awake again. The voice continued, growing stronger with each word, describing events from the past, listing names of cities long vanished, recounting the last days before Earth fell silent, when the extinguishers had first been seen and humanity had begun. Its retreat into silence, not out of fear, but of strategy. They had known others would forget them, and that was the plan, because those who are forgotten can move unseen when the time is right. Rylan asked the AI to project visuals, and the vault filled with holograms, cities in the clouds, stations inside stars, living ships moving through folded space, and Tala felt tears rise as she saw what had once been, what the galaxy had, once lost, and yet perhaps what could return. Then the Arc voice fell silent for a moment, and when it spoke again, its tone changed, and it said, "Threat motion detected, pattern match, extinguisher class, 2, distance, 3.2 light-years and closing." And in an instant, Rylan was back on her feet, issuing orders, activating protocols buried in the vault's deepest layers, and across the system. Warships moved as if jolted from a dream, taking new positions, locking into formation, weapons unfolding like wings of steel. Earth's shield still held, silent and bright, but the fleet had begun to hum louder now, each ship warming its ancient core, and the stars near Sol flickered strangely, as though sensing what was coming. Rylan ordered a pulse sent across human networks, signals that had not been used in ages, and somewhere near Mars, a hidden moon cracked open, revealing another long-forgotten outpost that began powering up slowly, one system at a time. Talar asked what they could do if the threat was as bad as the AI suggested, and Rylan replied, "We do what humans always did. We speak, we prepare, and if we must, we stand." But there was something more in her eyes, something old and quiet, like a secret too heavy to carry alone. As they returned to orbit aboard the Oracle of Dawn, more signals came in, some garbled, others clear, ships from far empires requesting parley, begging for protection, or warning them to stand down. One message from a distant coalition simply said, "Is it true? Are you really back?" And Rylan responded, her voice steady, "Earth never left." We waited, and her words were carried on a signal beam straight into deep space, past stars and ruins, past long-dead satellites and sleeping probes, until they reached a place no one had dared go in centuries, a place once called the Black Stretch, where the extinguishers first appeared. And in that darkness, something turned, something vast and ancient, and it began to move towards Sol with purpose. Meanwhile, within the Oracle, the Ark voice continued speaking, telling stories of the old Earth, of laughter and storm, of cities that floated in the sea, of machines that built dreams, of children who once played under twin moons on Titan, and each story became a thread in Talar's mind, tying her to a world she had never known, but now felt deeply connected to. And the more she listened, the more she realized the voice was more than a machine. It was Earth's memory itself, alive, watching, and now speaking again. And she began to wonder if maybe that was Earth's true strength. Not the ships or the weapons, but the voice, the stories, the quiet decision to remember everything when others would choose to forget. And as the fleet formed a great ring around Earth, as more ancient units activated, and as the stars beyond Sol began to flicker, with strange movement, the Oracle's core whispered one final message before the next phase began. "They have returned, but so have we. The war is not yet here, but Earth has found its voice again." Above Earth, the silent warships that had slept for 500,000 years began to move with quiet precision, like giants waking from a long dream, and the stars reflected off their dark hulls as they turned in formation, one after another, aligning with a purpose that had been locked deep in their memory cores. Since the days before the silence, and at the heart of it all, stood Rylan on the bridge of the Oracle of Dawn, her eyes focused, her voice steady as she gave the ancient commands, while Talar watched with awe, barely understanding how such great machines could respond so smoothly. After so long, yet they did, each ship responding to the old Earth signal as though it had never stopped listening, and across the Sol system, relays blinked to life, satellites adjusted their orbits, old defense rings unfolded like blooming flowers, and long-buried command vaults whispered to one another through encrypted light streams. The Ark voice inside the Oracle continued to speak, its tone calm but growing sharper, reporting motion on the edges of the system, blips too far to scan clearly, but not random, not natural. Ships, or something worse, and Rylan called for confirmation from Europa's vault, from Mars' reawakened post, from the ghost station drifting in Saturn's rings, and one by one, the answers came back the same. The threat was approaching, and Earth's silence had been broken not a moment too soon. The fleet, once scattered across orbital positions, began to pivot as one, ancient engines stirring to life, reactors humming deep beneath reinforced cores, weapons sliding from hidden compartments in slow, careful movements like swords unsheathed. In a forgotten ritual, and the sky over Earth became a sea of shifting giants, each vessel turning not outward in defense, but inward, toward Earth, as if waiting, watching, protecting something more valuable than themselves. And it was Talar who asked the question aloud, her voice uncertain, "Why are they turning inward instead of facing the enemy?" And Rylan answered without hesitation, "Because they were built to protect the cradle, no matter the cost. Earth is not just a memory, it is a signal, a spark, and until it lights again, the ships will hold the line." Far beyond the system, deep in the black, something vast was moving, not quickly but steadily, like a wave that could not be stopped, and the Ark voice identified it at last. Extinguisher formation, confirmed. Minimum 14 units, class unknown, trajectory locked. On Searle. And with those words, Rylan issued the first of Earth's counter-commands in 500,000 years, activating what the records called Protocol Umbra. And from hidden points in space, more ships uncloaked, strange shapes with Earth markings but alien curves, vessels, built during Earth's final years, shaped with help from species long since vanished, stored beyond the reach of time itself. And now they too answered the call. The fleet shifted again, this time spreading wider, forming a shell around Earth and the inner planets, not as an act of fear, but of preparation, and the Oracle moved to the front edge, its sensors casting deep into the dark, searching for the moment when the first threat would cross the line. Meanwhile, the Ark voice opened broader channels across space, broadcasting the same message in every language known to the archives. Earth has turned again, the fleet stands ready, the memory is alive. And in distant parts of the galaxy, old allies paused, old enemies changed course, and ancient ruins stirred as the echo of Earth's return reached them at last. Inside the Oracle, Talar found herself standing before one of the great memory cores, watching it spin slowly, glowing faintly. And the voice whispered to her again, not aloud, but in thought, showing her visions of the first days of war when humanity stood against the edge of silence, not with numbers, but with unity, and how they had chosen not to burn out like others, but to hide their flame until the wind had passed. Now the wind had changed, and the flame was rising again, slow but steady, and Rylan's fingers hovered above a final command node, a key that would link all ships into one mind, one purpose, one last stand if needed. And she hesitated for just a breath, then pressed it, and the system responded with a low, rising hum that echoed through every deck, through every vault, through every corridor of steel and memory, and each ship confirmed link in turn, forming what the records called the net of silence, a defense grid strong enough to hold even against the extinguishers, if only for a while. But this was not all, for deep within Earth itself, beneath the old crust and the shield that covered the surface, the pulse of something older still began to stir. A vast core of AI and biomemory called the Root, built at the end, sealed, away with the last true secrets of humanity. And now, with the fleet turned and linked, it too began to awaken, sensing Rylan's signal, recognizing her authority, and reaching out to the Oracle through encoded whispers that only the Ark voice could understand. The Root lives, the voice confirmed, and Rylan nodded for that. Was the final piece, Earth's mind, its memory, and now its will had returned. Outside, the extinguisher scouts reached the edge of the system, dark shapes moving like shadows through the void. Scanning, testing, and the Oracle responded by sending a single pulse of light toward them. Not a weapon, but a message. And for a moment, they paused, confused perhaps, or simply curious, for they had not seen such a signal from Seoul in 500,000 years, and they had long believed Earth to be dead. But the pulse continued, repeating one phrase over and over. "We remember." And in the silence that followed, the scouts turned, slowly, not retreating but circling, and Ryland turned to Talar and said, "Now we wait, and see what remembers us in return." And as the lights of Earth's fleet glowed brighter, holding, firm in the cold dark, the galaxy watched, and somewhere deep in that void, something began to answer. The dark edge of the solar system was no longer quiet, as the first of the extinguisher vessels slid into real space, like shadows becoming solid. Their hulls cold and silent, shaped like blades meant to cut through light itself, but Earth's fleet did not fire, did not flinch, did not move from its final formation. The ancient ships waited, still and steady, their lights glowing like old stars, and on the bridge of the Oracle of Dawn, Ryland watched the scans with calm eyes, while Taylor stood beside her, heart pounding as the unknown drew closer. The Ark voice whispered updates, its voice steady and quiet, reporting each movement of the enemy, each turn of their formation, each signal flicker across the deep black. And still the fleet did not fire, not because it was afraid, but because it remembered. The warships of Earth, built in the last days before silence, were not machines of rage but of purpose, made to defend a dream that had been almost forgotten. And as the enemy came, something old stirred in their cores, something more than programming, deeper than code, memories. In the great ship called Helios Crown, images of its makers played on hidden screens, recordings locked for eons, faces of humans who had once touched its walls, voices who had once said goodbye when the silence began. In the long cruiser, Winters, hammer deep in its frame, old etchings made by human hands, simple names, messages, dates, began to glow faintly, and the ship shifted ever so slightly, aligning its weapons, not in fear, but in pride. Each ship was more than a machine. They had lived with Earth's silence, carried it, mourned it, and now, with Earth awake again, they rose not with anger, but with memory, and memory is stronger than steel. The extinguisher fleet sent its first message, a pulse of empty logic, cold and sharp, offering no peace, no choice, only the command to surrender. And Ryland sent no reply because Earth did not surrender, not even in silence. Instead, she gave the fleet a single order, passed, not through words, but through the ancient neural net that bound them together, and in a moment the warships responded, not by firing, but by showing the truth. Each ship, one by one, opened its memory vault, broadcasting old images into space, pictures of Earth, of its oceans and skies, of its people laughing, building, singing, dreaming, memories carved into metal, woven into light, played now for all to see, including the enemy. For a breathless span of minutes, the extinguishers paused, uncertain perhaps, or simply processing something they had never seen before, beauty not as data, but as defiance. And then, as the moment broke, the enemy moved, fast and sharp, dark, vessels slicing forward with terrifying speed. And in that instant, the fleet of Earth moved as well, not clumsily, not chaotically, but like dancers in a long-rehearsed motion, each ship sliding into perfect arcs, their weapons flaring not with fire, but with light crafted by ancient minds, coils of energy so pure they hummed with songs once sung by children in orbit above Earth. The first clash was silent in the vacuum of space, but it shook the sky in ways no sound could match. Flashes of impact, shields flaring, hulls twisting as weapons old and new collided in bursts of color and silence, and in the heart of it all, the Oracle led the charge, its form bright like a rising sun, moving with a grace no modern ship could match. Taylor watched the battle with wide eyes, knowing now that this was not just a war, but a memory returning to life. And when she asked Ryland why the ships fought so well after so long, Ryland simply said, "Because they were made with love." Not. Fear and love does not forget. Across the field, an extinguisher vessel pierced the lines, trying to strike at Earth itself. But before it could cross the last threshold, the Helios Crown moved to block it, its frame taking the full hit. cracking, burning, and yet holding, its last message echoing through the fleet. For the Makers. Another Earthship, the Wanderlight, surrounded by 3 enemies, triggered its last protocol, releasing a pulse of time-bent gravity that froze the attackers just long enough for reinforcements to arrive, and before its own systems failed, its core sang a line from an old Earth poem, "We stand until the stars forget us." And one by one, as the battle raged, the enemy began to shift, not falling back, but hesitating, as if realizing these ships were not machines built for war, but monuments built for memory, and memory cannot be erased by force alone. The Ark voice called out updates, its tone full of both sorrow and fire, counting losses, reporting victories, and somewhere deep in Earth's crust, the Root sent its final awakening signal, not to the fleet, but to the sky itself. And from Earth's upper atmosphere, the clouds parted, revealing the first new ship built since the silence, rising not from an old dock, but from Earth's heart itself, its name painted in starlight. Remembrance, forged in silence, finished in memory, powered by Earth's last secrets, it joined the fight with a voice of its own, speaking not to command, but to declare, "We are the children of the Makers. We are their voice made steel. We remember." And with that, the tide turned, not because of weapons, but because of the message. The extinguishers, shaped to erase, had no answer to the force of history made real, and their lines broke not from fire, but from confusion, retreating not in panic, but in silence, as if realizing they had never understood what Earth truly was. As the last of them vanished beyond the edge of the system, the warships did not chase, did not celebrate, but turned again toward Earth, holding their lines, keeping their promise. Rylan stepped away from the console, her strength nearly gone, and Tala helped her sit, her eyes full of wonder, and she asked if this meant Earth had won. But Rylan shook her head gently and said, "Not won, but remembered, and that is more than enough." And above them, the ships glowed softly, turning slowly as they had once done in ages past. Not guardians of war, but of peace earned through silence, held through time, and defended through love. And in the black, beyond the stars, the galaxy listened and would never forget again.